Hey guys, Chaz from Elevate Coaching here. Let's talk climbing. Okay, I really want to talk about climbing today. I think a lot of people have questions about how to get better at climbing. Now, just right off the bat, person in front of me is Nick. He's our team sprinter. He's not really a climber, although he's been putting in a lot of work lately, and he's starting to get scary good at climbing. Like this ride, we did 2 other climbs after this, and we rolled them like at my threshold or above. Now, that little turnout right there is where our segment starts for today. The KOM on this segment is around 8:13, I believe, or 8:20, somewhere in that area. I actually have the KOM. Nick's PR at this climb is around 9:17. On this day particularly, he ran a 9:40. So his best time was a couple years ago. But he actually took 3 years off the bike, and he's now getting back in shape. He's actually in the best shape he's ever been, and that longer sustained power is really starting to come back. But he actually wanted to do a 10-minute effort on this, and this is the first thing you gotta do is you gotta know your climb. You have to know the ins and outs of it. You need to know where the steep sections are. You need to know where the non-steep sections, or even maybe there's a slight downhill on some parts of the climb. You need to know, if there's switchbacks on it, how many switchbacks there are until you're closer to the top. You need to know the halfway point, and then you need to obviously know what the top looks like. But this climb in particular, we have done 1,000 times. I could totally hand draw this thing for you in my sleep and tell you every ins and out about it, where all the potholes on it are, different things like that. It's a beautiful climb. It's around 4 to 6% the whole way. There's a couple spots that hit 7, but outside of that, it's really smooth and gradual. You can actually big ring this climb. When I got the KOM, and even right now during this climb, I'm big ringing it. All of these stats on the screen are going to be from me, but knowing your climb makes a difference. It can allow for pacing. Now, Nick wanted to do a 10-minute power effort, so he knew it's going to take him about 9.5 minutes to get to the top of this climb. If he actually set a really good power, then he could actually just climb in less than 10 minutes. So he actually started his 10-minute effort about 30 seconds to 45 seconds out from the start of his actual segment. So what he did, and this is something else you want to do, is you must learn how to pace. He started this climb, and his goal in mind was to average around 325-ish watts for 10 minutes, or more if he could. Now, when he started the climb for the first minute and a half, he sat around 310. And as we went up the climb, he started to feel comfortable, and he pushed the envelope a little bit more, and he started to increase the power. And then eventually he gets to a point where he can't increase the power anymore, but rather now he's on the defense, and he is just hanging on as long as he can, and hopefully he can get there before the 10 minutes and finish it out. So right now we're coming into almost halfway up this climb, and we've been doing about 318 up to this point. Now we're starting to get into the 325 average range, and he actually started holding that. So we're about 4.5 minutes into the effort, and we're now around 325. So it's taken him 4.5 minutes to slowly bring up his average power to about 325. And now for the next 5.5 minutes, he is going to hold 325, 330 for the rest of the climb. Now, Nick and I are also very similar in weight. He weighs around 153. I'm around 152, 153 right now. When racing picks back up, I'll probably drop back to 150. We'll see. fingers crossed. But we're around the similar weight, so the power that I'm running is actually very comparable to the power he did. Actually, when we got to the top, I think I averaged 327 and he averaged 326. So we were both within 1 watt. Had something on my camera there. The next thing I want to talk about, so we talked about you need to know your climb, and then the second thing was you need to understand how to pace the climb. The third thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about cadence. Nick has a very good climbing cadence. I, on the other hand, am holding back and just kind of sitting in his draft. I mean, obviously I'm not holding back, I'm doing 360, but I'm just trying to stay on his wheel, and I'm not paying attention to my cadence, but rather I'm just focusing on his wheel, and I'm just kind of grinding it out in the big ring, and just staying right there. Now, here's the difference between low and high cadence. When it comes to a lower cadence, like what I'm pushing, it may require less oxygen, but it's actually going to create more neuromuscular fatigue. So if I was to try to sprint Nick at the end of this, since I'm grinding it out, it's gonna be a little bit tougher for me because I've been fatiguing my neuromuscular muscles, and it's gonna be hard for me to get that neuromuscular power for a snap and a sprint into this. Where Nick's been actually spinning it relatively high. He's around 85 to 90 RPM, and he's gonna have some pretty solid neuromuscular ability, plus he's a sprinter, so that's not good for me. But the other thing with a low cadence is one positive, actually no, it's not a positive, it's a negative, sorry. But it reduces the lactate clearance. So as you climb, you go into the threshold or higher, you start to get a lot of blood lactate, and your body is not gonna be able to clear it as well at a lower cadence. Also, what happens is you have an increased dependence upon fast twitch muscle fibers. So again, you're wearing out your neuromuscular system, and you're wearing out those fast twitch muscle fibers. Now, if we switch over to the high cadence, which is what Nick is doing, he's not doing a high cadence, he's doing a fairly high cadence. I mean, 85 to 90 is really good for climbing. He's doing a higher cadence, and what's gonna happen here is it's actually gonna require less muscle activation, right? But because of this, it's going to come at a higher energy cost, okay? So now if he's spinning right now, I mean, he's going to be using less muscles because he's got less force that he's putting out. Even though he's still doing 320 watts at a 90 RPM is less force than 320 watts at a 70 RPM. But the only other difference here is it's going to uptick his heart rate quite a bit. So his heart rate is actually going to skyrocket quite a bit. So if I was to be doing a higher cadence, my heart rate would have hit 183 a lot sooner, but because I'm doing the lower cadence, it's not. Now, I'm not able to clear the blood lactate as fast at my lower cadence as Nick can at his, but I also have a pretty good blood lactate tolerance, so this lower cadence and this draft isn't hurting me too much. Now again, it's all how you train. If you want to work on cadence, I suggest finding climbs and just focusing on spinning up them around threshold or tempo at about a 90 RPM. Anything over that, it definitely gets pretty tough. I wouldn't wait for a race to go try out a higher cadence on the climb. If you don't do that, I would do it on a practice climb. So again, the first thing is you need to know your climb. The second thing is you need to know how to pace your climb. Third thing is pay attention to your cadence. Different cadences allow your body to do different things. And then the fourth and last thing is Nick does a great job of switching between seated climbing and standing climbing. When you switch back and forth between those, you're actually allowing little slight breaks in for different muscle groups as you stand up. Like when you stand up, you start using more, maybe more of your quads, whereas when you're sitting down, you can be using some more of your hamstrings and stuff when you're pulling up. So when you stand, you're more of stomping down on the pedals, so you're using some of the glute, using a lot more of your quads. When you're sitting down, you can be pulling up on the pedal as you come over the pedal stroke. So then again, you're going to be using more of your glutes, and then you can be using some of your hamstrings, all those different things. But when you switch between standing and sitting, you actually give some of your muscle groups a break while the other ones start to pick up the workload, and then when you switch back, it's reversed. So if you work on standing and sitting, that's a perfect thing to do. I do it quite often on the climbs. I will actually stand to give myself a rest and to just kind of keep grinding, let the legs clear a little bit, and then I'll sit down. One cool thing is I remember Alberto Contador, he used to talk about how he would go out to some of the Tour de France climbs and he would actually spend 30 minutes, like he would do them and he'd spend 30 minutes standing the entire time. And if you ever watched him in the Tour de France, that dude stood a lot. Like he loved to stand and climb. He felt very comfortable. So find what works out for you. Sometimes I will actually stand for a lot of these climbs and sometimes I won't, but it's all different things, different muscles, groups like that. And the last thing is, when you're digging deep at the end, dig deep. When the finish line's there, like that's the finish. So we're coming up on the finish now. I'm starting to come up next to him, just giving him some encouragement, really talking him through it, be like, come on dude, dig, 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 dig. And then we got through here, we finished. There you have it. Nick, again, is our sprinter, and the dude has really started to get his climbing dialed in. Those are just some simple tips and tricks that Nick has done to get good at climbing. Those are some things that I do. I honestly think I'm decent at climbing. I love rocking a lot of the climbs in our area, so those are some things I've done and found that really helps me over the years. If you guys have anything that you do in particular that helps you with climbing, man, leave that in the comments below, because we are a community, so it'd be nice to hear what other people find really works and helps them. I know we didn't talk about breathing, about how keeping your arms and everything, but there's so many more things we could have talked about when it came to climbing in general. But anyways, that's that. I got some more videos coming out too about working on bump drills and whatnot. But until then, keep riding hard and keep training hard, and I will catch you guys on the next video.